Hi, people. Good evening. It's Born and Red, and it's the front three show with an added attacker tonight in Conroy, but more on our debutant in a bit. Uh, in a football calendar, which includes the World Cup, players, managers, coaching staff. Wouldn't say fans, but everyone else been sort of complaining about the overload on players this season, but due to unforeseen circumstances, all of a sudden we've got a break this week. Guys, what we're going to do this week, but before then, we're going to play a game today. We're gonna go off Jurgen Klopp's comments in his presser, or was it in his post-match interview about Liverpool? It's time to reinvent ourselves. So we're going to play the game today as to how Liverpool should reinvent themselves and how it would look. And what does it mean? Is it back to basics? Start chasing the ball a bit better, start running around a bit more. But we're not boring, Uzla. I know Avi is a bit boring, but we know one or two things about the game, and we're gonna go into it a bit more deeper than that. So look, before that, we go into the nitty-gritty stuff. It's only right to welcome our esteemed guest today, Conroy. Conroy, you're not a stranger to YouTube shows. You don't need any big introduction, man, but you're more than welcome. And thank you very much for coming on tonight, especially at short notice.
No, it's a pleasure to be here, guys. I've actually obviously saw you've been doing the channel recently and caught some of it as well. To be honest, my life's been a bit hectic recently, where it's been like the only podcast I've been on is a Sunday night, really, and then that's it. You just kind of listen to all the other ones, but it's a pleasure to be here, and it's actually quite looking forward to just hearing your opinions on the situation and the comments. I think it's a really good idea for the agenda items tonight as well, because it was quite a ambiguous comment that the post-match interview. So I think, yeah, definitely, it sounds very exciting. But as I say, it's a pleasure to be here, and obviously I've seen Avi many times, and obviously he's, as you say, very boring, never controversial, very safe. People would probably argue I was more safe at times, but the last couple of weeks, even I've started to rant a bit, and that's not what I do. So that's maybe a good interlude to what we're talking about. But as I say, guys, it's great to have a chat about these things, and I always say this to Avi, I'm quite fortunate just to be on channels, because I think, to be honest, getting to watch Liverpool for so many years, but actually getting to talk about them after the games, I think it helps personally. I feel a lot better, win or lose or draw, after talking about them, because it's out my system. So thanks for having me on, and look forward to chatting.
It's a pleasure. Avi, like Conroy said, it's good to talk. It's a bit of therapy these days, on every 2-3 days. But you popped into the comments post-match after Napoli, but we didn't let you. Well, you said you're too busy to come on, but we're going to give you the opportunity to sort of get it off your chest today, man. How are you first and foremost?
I think I'm streaming from Mars or somewhere, because my stream is really low. So what I'm going to do is, can you hear me okay? Yeah? Yeah, there might be a little bit of lag, but I'll go downstairs to see if I can get better coverage. As well as one can be, I suppose, Asim, the Napoli game, I couldn't possibly come on. Gene knows I was absolutely livid with that shower of shite, basically. That's what it was. It was an awful, embarrassing performance, but it has been embarrassing, especially the start of the season. We've just not got going, but we'll come onto that Napoli game. Overpowered, outworked, outperformed. How many times in the last 3-4 years can we say that about a Liverpool team over the course of a 90-minute game? But yeah, we look like amateurs. That's a sad indictment of where we are at the moment. We look like a very, very, very bad team. A team that's, a lot of these words that are going around Twitter right now, transition. We can't be a team in transition right now after last season.
Yeah,
the team is exhausted, 100%. I think there's proof now that we know that the team's exhausted, but that's up to the coaches and the manager. And I still have full belief. Saw some Jurgen Klopp out shouts today throughout Twitter the last week, which is embarrassing. But that's the set of fan base that we have, following suit of a certain North London derby team, which I won't mention. But yeah, we just need to look. It's a rough ride at the moment, and some would say that this was coming. So it's up to Klopp and the coaches, and the recruitment team and the board to fix this. January can't come quick enough, it seems.
And Gene, the ever-present Gene, I'm still waiting for Gene to smile, and it's been about a month to 6 weeks now. But you know, the results at the moment, bar Bournemouth, which is probably expected, is not allowing us to smile about. But Gene, how are you? How you been spending spending your last 2-3 days? I saw you on Redmen as well. You were a lot calmer compared to your post-match reaction.
Yeah, I feel slightly better. To be fair, I think the game getting postponed, it actually made me even more. It made me feel a lot better, if I'm honest. I'm actually glad that we've got a few weeks off, and hopefully the players can recuperate. You know, get a bit of rest, and even though we've got Ajax, and I don't think our first league game isn't going to be until early October now. So I'm actually glad. I think that's what's put me slightly at ease with a few more players coming back, and hopefully by then, you know, we go again.
Conroy, coming to you then, just give me your sort of general thoughts on the Napoli game, because it's a reoccurring pattern at the moment, isn't it, mate? You know, we keep sort of mentioning the same kind of things. Liverpool are not starting well enough, but we're finishing games, you know, very well. But is that maybe because people, you know, teams are taking a lead and then we're having to sort of chase games? I think is, you know, maybe a pattern for that. But just touching on Klopp's comments again, and he said, look, you know, this is the game that is the worst game I've seen in terms of Liverpool not looking compact. But why aren't Liverpool going onto the pitch and looking compact? Because Klopp has just said it, the coaching staff are driving them mad and telling them, why isn't those instructions translating onto the pitch? What is it?
The thing is, mate, it's for me, I think there's been signs. So I'd actually have I've debated to say that I think that United was just as bad as Napoli. Napoli are just a better attack, so that's how they cut us open more. I think losing that United team is still embarrassing. Up there, the worst result. Those two are probably the worst results under Klopp. For me, the United one is still unforgivable. They are shockingly poor, and we just fell right into their hands. Still not over that one. That is going to be a black mark against his record for the length of time, because that is not good enough. They've won 3 games, right, by just hook or by crook, and even in those games got lucky. Lost to Sociedad last night. They'll lose again. They're a poor team, and we should have exploited that. So I think that was just as bad. Firstly, I just think Napoli were more intelligent in their attack, and we played right into their hands. To be honest, guys, like, they're saying this, and all I hear now, and I know Avi will talk about it, is intensity, and I get it, right? You go to the Anfield tour, intensity, I understand all that, right? But football's not just intensity. There's adaptability, there's understanding where you are as a team, and there's managing that, hence the word manager, hence the word coaching, hence the word, flexibility in certain games. It's very obvious. Football is not, sometimes I say this, it's a simple game for complicated people, and I'd say that a lot. Now, obviously, top echelons, they know what they're doing. Don't get me wrong. I'm just being a bit tongue-in-cheek. But when you talk about trying to play a gegenpress in a high line, when firstly your defence have been off it, Van Dijk looks all over the place at the moment, right? So firstly that, your midfield can't press. You've got a 35 James Milner trying to do a gegenpress, right, against a front three in Napoli, who everyone knows are on fire atop of Serie A. So that for me is that you've got philosophy, but then you've just got intelligence going in a game, and those two don't match there. I think trying to play that way against them was terrible decision making, to be honest. And you could tell from the first minute as Osimhen got in straight away, hit the post. That was the first minute, by the way. Literally, first 30 seconds they got in. So to me, the way I approached that game was all wrong. You have got to be, as a manager and a team, adaptable. And it doesn't mean you throw the philosophy out, but it also doesn't mean it's not working. Like the biggest thing people say is if you want to press in midfield, the high line, obviously you need to press first, get up the park, right? Well, we can't press at that rate anyway. And I think our defence look quite, their decision making's quite lost at the moment. I would say they're not confident in each other. So I think those tactics for that game was pretty terrible, to be honest. Like, you could see that coming a mile off. And I think for me, saying we're the least compact is probably a fair statement, but I think there's been signs all season for that. And I think try to stay with this high line, especially the way we operate it, I know we're going to talk about that. I don't want to steal anyone's thunder, but I just think that's not like we sometimes put too much focus on this is the way, that's the only way. I don't believe in that at all. Again, adaptability in football is what make managers, right? And sometimes people get mixed up philosophy being the same as your tactics for each game. I disagree with that a lot. Pep Guardiola will literally changed his formation against West Ham because last season they got done 4 times on the counter-attack, and look at what they've done this season. Now, I'm not comparing us because, listen, talk about the technical players in that squad, but what I just mean is it doesn't mean you have to go with the same lineup or the same shape in every game. You can adapt. That's the whole point, especially when you're not in good form. So I've went on about their guys, but overall, I just think it was I'd seen the signs coming, and I thought from the first minute we were going to get battered, and I was correct. That's the way it worked out.
Gene Conroy, broke it down really well. But before, guys, everyone watching on here, and I've just realized Hussam, the master of Twitter Spaces, and his channel is This Is Football as well. Guys, please head over and like and follow him as well. He's maybe controversial, but you have to respect his honesty as well. And
he's the top red. That's what he is. Listen, Hussam, you're a top red. You'll always be a top red. So you know what? I respect your grind. So like and subscribe to This Is Football. Don's a good look. Don's a very good bloke. He has his views on Liverpool Football Club and the state of it. And to be fair, he's hit some hard-hitting facts early on in the summer, and it's coming to fruition. And he's been right. So yeah, look. Apart from the controversial stuff, Don's a top guy. And yeah, go and like and subscribe to his channel.
Of course. I echo those comments. Well, Gene, just touching on what Conroy was saying, as in Liverpool need to adapt, and we all know why they need to, because we've got integral cogs in the team that are missing. So let's look at those integral parts of the Liverpool team. And one of those integral parts, the identity that Conroy was touching on, is the Liverpool high line. And we like to play that is because, we like to squeeze teams. We like to play in the final third of the opposition's half. And that's how we've been scoring many, many goals, is we've been winning the ball up high up the pitch and turning over and, attacking the goal. But now at the moment, because there's so many gaps in midfield, should you think Liverpool should drop? And I'm not saying 10, 15 yards and be a counter-attacking team. Well, should they drop at least 5 yards or so? Is because we need a bit of extra protection.
100%, Asim. Look, over the last 6 games, one of the biggest issues I've found is it's not the number 9 that we have the issue with. It's the runners from beyond who actually get in behind, and that's what's causing us the biggest issue. When we've got runners in behind, so runners coming in from midfield, let's say, and our midfield hasn't been great. You're only playing a Fabinho as, let's say, the actual 6. So there's a lot more players coming in, and we're not covering these runs. If you're not covering these runs, you're going to get exposed. And with the defense with a high line, a defense that's not playing well, you're going to get caught. How many times this season have we seen the runners from beyond get in? So many times we've seen that. I'm going to mention the 4th goal. When after half time, it was a simple ball. There was no press. We talk about our press. We haven't been pressing. You just mentioned winning the ball high up. When we normally,
how are you going to press with the 36-year-old Milner, though? Tell me.
Well, this is the thing.
How are you going to press? How are you going to press with a player like Fabinho, who's played like 60, 70 odd games in the last sort of season, for Brazil league football, Premiership? Like what are we even trying to do? Right? We can't even I'd rather put a 17-year-old like a Bajicic instead of a Milner. Milner was commended and absolutely commended. Sorry, Gene, but you know what? I'm going to let loose a little bit. James Milner, right, was commended for his performance against United, or the performance that he put on, the little act he put on Virgil van Dijk and Jordan Henderson, right, berating them. But what the fuck has he done, right? And I get the respect that James Milner deserves in football. But now what's happening is when every time he starts and every time he puts up a stinker, true fans who appreciate him, who've appreciated his career throughout Newcastle, Aston Villa, Liverpool days, Man City days, are going to start turning on him, right? And this boils back to the lack of vision and the lack of activity in the transfer market. Give us 70. Okay, we didn't buy a midfielder, all right, Chelo, TK, we got Arthur in. So why don't we just play a Bajicic? Give him a go. I mean, how worse can it be? How worse could that result on Wednesday and the result against Man United at Old Trafford? How worse could it have been with a 17-year-old in there? Someone explain to me.
I mean, look, the truth is, Klopp went for experience. That's the you know.
But experience is getting us nowhere. Experience has
Well,
got us nowhere, though. And
I'm
I'm
not-
not getting, but experience is getting us nowhere right now. He said something that was telling on Wednesday night, right? Asim and Gene, he said we've got to reinvent ourselves. He's saying that with 6 games into the season. Do you know how worrying that is? Do we actually know? Are we grasping how worrying that is? That he's saying 6 games in after all that planning throughout the summer, pre-seasons away to France in these high mountains, going on the little bikes, releasing Pep Linders' book. He's saying now, 6 games in, that we've got to reinvent ourselves. That ain't fucking easy, guys.
Had to put the book in there. He had to put the book in there.
Well, look,
Listen, I'm a big fan of the book.
No, because I actually, you know what? I actually agree with everything that he said. Avi, and I want you to carry on because I like what you're saying. Because look, it's true. We have to understand that. Look, the truth is, you know, reinventing ourselves after 6 games, it just shows you the severity of the issue that we've got right now. And look, and I know I've said, and I know Asim mentioned that, you know what, Thiago coming back. I know me and Asim disagreed. I thought Thiago coming back wouldn't solve all our problems, but we were like, look, he's such a great player that he will solve most of our issues. And I get that, and I do kind of agree now. But there are still fundamental issues with this side. You know, I can understand the issues with, you know, form. Some players are off form, fine. But there was issues with this side in terms of we look so like some of our players felt like they gave up. You know, a couple of goals down, we felt like we've given up. We look like a side sometimes that they're just. I get
Gene, from minute one against Napoli. Look. Let us cut the BS. From minute 1 against Napoli, we didn't want it. We looked defeated as soon as we walked in that stadium. And yes, that stadium is full of Napoli's fans, right? Like brilliant Napoli fans. They're passionate. They're aggressive. We didn't want it from the minute that we kicked off. We didn't want it. We didn't want it at all. We down tools, like Yunus says. We down tools, and like it's embarrassing right now. Where we are right now after the Community Shield winning, right? We thought, yeah, let's sit now. We'll go on a momentum run. Like, you know, we'll beat the likes of Fulham. We'll beat the likes of Palace. We'll go on. The first 10 games are all winnable. And I really meant that. Look at us now. And how detrimental is it now that we're relying on a 31-year-old Thiago? We're literally pinning our hopes that he stays fit to salvage something from our season.
But Avi, I think you're breaking up a bit. But just going back to your, you know, pressing, you know, run, and James, how can you expect James Milner, 36-year-old, to press in midfield? I checked the stats. Liverpool are still making 32.8 pressures per, you know, sort of 90 minutes, which is sort of a decrease from last season's. It was 44.8 pressures last season, but Liverpool's success rate is still the best in the league. So I know they're not pressing as much, but they're still the best at it, even with Harvey Elliott and James Milner in it.
You can chuck every statistic you can at me, Asim, but the fact of the matter is, we know when we're looking at the game over 90 minutes, we know there's a disparity and a disengagement between the defense and the midfield. The likes of Van Dijk, the likes of Gomez, the likes of Matip, even when Konate comes in, they will struggle purely because, yeah, we can press and win, and we might still be top when it comes to presses, but how many of those presses are intelligent presses, right? United under Mourinho tried to press. They were pressing all over the shop at first when, you know, he tried to come in and say that, oh, no, we're going to harass the opposition. But it's all about pressing intelligently and collectively. We're not doing that. One will press, two will hang back. Two will press, one will hang back. It's got to be a collective press. So we might still be literally like winning tackles and winning possession back quicker than ever. We might even still be topping last season's record. But it's about pressing collectively and intelligently. We need to bring those stats up if anyone has them. And overpowering. We're getting overpowered too, Asim. We're being overpowered. I mean, likes of like Palhinha in the Fulham game. Palhinha, typical example, his first game in the Premiership. It looked as if he'd been playing for years in the Premiership. How much was he at ease alongside against say Fabinho, Thiago, and Hendo in the first half before Thiago went off? He was at pure ease. Go on, sorry, guys.
Conrad, just, you know, back to the high line again. You know, even I saw some comments from Jamie Carragher saying Liverpool just don't need to always hold the line. I know they've got the recovery pace to get back at times, you know. And but didn't we see some signs of Liverpool doing that? If you saw the play before the first goal where, you know, they played into the channel behind the defense and Osimhen rounded Alisson and missed, you know, hit the post. if you see Gomez, he did go with him, and sort of Alisson came out, and so there was signs of Liverpool actually doing what Carragher wants the Liverpool high line to do. And also, if you look at the second penalty just before that instance when Van Dijk brought him down, if you saw that, normally Van Dijk holds the line and lets Osimhen, go in and hopefully catch him on. But Van Dijk followed him. So, there were some signs of Liverpool actually following the attacker.
Yeah, no, I know, but I think as well, I think you could have. That's a good point, actually. To be fair, because Carragher always says you don't actually have to stand still like a statue. I mean, his big thing is, why would anyone stand still? Like, if he's offside and you chase him, he's offside. You don't have to stand still. Like the Tony Adams special, but that was before VAR, so that doesn't work as well. But what my point would be is, I still think we need to drop 5 yards back anyway. On top of that, because the biggest issue I think there's lots of issues, but I think teams, if you watch that Spalletti performance, I think he's actually smashed it with his secondary runs. So Zielinski was this was actually, I was on a podcast, it was Kev from Day Trippers who mentioned this after the match. He said Zielinski's decoy runs were causing us problem constantly. So basically it's like he would go, and then I can't pronounce the Georgian winger, but he's superb. But a lot of their passes, but they were in sync of when to go. They were like, it was like, you talk about a pressing trigger, their runs were like triggers. As soon as he went or someone else went, they would follow that in behind. And Liverpool were at 6-8-7s. They didn't know what to do. One, that's terrible, because that makes it look like, right, well, they've found quite a big chink in the armour there. Secondly, the aura's gone at the moment. No one's scared of that Liverpool defence. Any counter-attacking team in the world will look forward to playing us. I will argue that anyone right now, because we're off it. I think having our aura in defence is definitely a big thing. I think, like, Virgil for me he's just not in good form right now, but it definitely, you do second guess yourself. Look at Martinez last year for Inter. He wouldn't even try to take the ball past him. This is a guy who'd been in form all year for Inter. Now it's not there. I don't think anyone's really going to be, for this moment of time, worried, and I think counter-attacking teams will go against us. You obviously have your Bournemouths, you might beat Wolves and stuff like that, but what we need to do is stop getting gassed by that or carried away, because that's the worst thing we've done with the Bournemouth game. Bournemouth were shit, we scored 9. It's that simple. We didn't learn anything that day. Sorry for swearing. But for me, the one for me is the fact that the amount of decoy runs now are getting in behind at ease. And Alisson, who already had to make too many saves, in my opinion, anyway. Imagine being the best keeper in the world and still having to make that many one-on-one saves for the team you're in. That must be annoying as well. But now it's getting to the point where it's like, Alisson's got to have a world day for us to even get close to winning a game, because we can't keep a clean sheet. So I get the thing following runners, but I just think we can't keep the high line that high. I just think it's not productive right now. Our defence, you have to be quite a confident team. You have to press from the front. Everyone has to be in sync. And it's pretty simple. We're not in sync. People can have all these words they want, but it's really it's no rocket science. Everyone needs to be working. I think Conte says, I know it's a different manager, but it's like from Eric Dyer to Kane, there's going to be 30 metres or something to be compact like that. We're not close to being in sync through injuries, through whatever, through out of form, whatever you want to say. But there's got to be I don't know why it's such a hard concept to change it for a game. Like, I don't understand.
I want to come back to you on that one. You won Liverpool, and look, I suggested it as well. But just to play devil's advocate, you want Liverpool to drop 5 yards. 5 yards on the pitch is still quite considerable. Yeah, I know it's not 10, 15 yards, but the way Liverpool play is 5 yards at the end of the day.
But are you not confident our defenders can defend then? This is because that's the real worry, isn't it? Because the reason teams do that is...
What I'm saying is to you, is a question to you is, don't you think, especially with Thiago just coming back, and even Thiago in the team, he's not known for his legs. He's known for his technical ability and controlling games when on the ball. So don't you think dropping 5 yards will create an even bigger gap between our midfield and our defence?
No, because the one thing I'd say about our team is we've still got the pace to counter-attack. And I think right now the blueprint to beat us is very obvious, and we're predictable FC at the moment. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon if we keep playing the same way. I think you drop 5 yards. I get what you're saying, but for me, right now, and as much as probably negative it sounds, we need to do the basics right, because we need to literally have a secure foundation, because we do not need to score 3 goals to win each game, because that's what you're trying to tell me, because we're conceding a goal in every game. We're conceding first. So the way I see it, I get what you're saying, mate, but for me, I think going 5 yards is not that detrimental, because you're basically saying to your defenders, I want you to actually, let's defend like a normal team today. Let's just deal with what we need to deal with and rely on our attack on the counter. I'm not saying we could automatically turn our counter side. I just think we can control the game from there. And that's also not the worst suggestion either. For a team that's got so much pace, see if you're playing a team at home and you just say, why don't you take the ball and do something? They wouldn't expect that. I'm not saying we go dramatically to that. I just think we need to go further back, because what will happen is you'll get away with one game, like you might beat Wolves, but then you'll come up against a Palace-esque team who've got pace on the counter. And teams now will probably even take their striker out and just put their pacey wingers and put their false nine or something like that. The blueprint was probably Brighton when they done it at Anfield last season, when they put Trossard and he dropped in to overload the midfield and we just couldn't handle it then. I think people do that now with wingers. But for me, mate, they've got to try something, because it's getting to the point now where you could guess what's going to happen in the game and it will happen. And for me, that shouldn't happen, because it's quite obvious right now.
Yeah. Avi, sorry, Gene, before I go, away from the high line, and Conroy touched on it, doesn't matter what we do, we need to sort of eradicate the individual mistakes from our play. And if you go to our second goal, I think it summed up Liverpool's performance on the night. It started with Gomez getting robbed in possession, and then, Trent was labouring back. And then again in the second phase, where it's a quick 1-2 outside the box, and take your pick who you want to blame. Do you want to blame sort of Trent for not going out a further 5 yards, getting closer to the guys who's running into the box? Play the ball, or do you sort of pick put your fingers towards Fabinho and who was it, Gomez, who was just ball watching? Fabinho gets drawn into the play because that's how much ball he was watching the ball, and Gomez, I don't know whether he was expecting Fab to do it. I don't know, but it's that sort of taking ownership in those crucial moments, isn't it? And it is just, we're not unrecognizable. We don't recognize this sort of play, and it's becoming a pattern in every single game where individual mistakes are happening on a regular basis.
Asim, that goal is indefensible. It is a basic 1-2. You see that 1-2, shite teams play that 1-2. Everybody plays that 1-2. And for us to have 4 players in the same vicinity just stood there doing F all, I'm sorry, but that's indefensible. That is on every single player that was in that area. Gomez, Trent, you saw what was he doing? He was walking. And I'm sorry, that is unacceptable. You can't accept anything, They need that. You need to go to town on them players for something like that. That's something that you teach to under 11s. You follow your man. The player didn't even follow his man. Come on, man. Anguissa was a standard player. You've got Anguissa doing 1-2s at the edge of our box. This is Liverpool. They just stood there. We were so lackluster. There was no focus, no concentration. We just didn't. It felt like they didn't care because they'd given up. And Avi was right. They were beaten before they came onto the pitch. That's how it felt like. And it was you mentioned Van Dijk's goal. The pen. I'm just gonna come back to that. The reason why I'm coming back to it is, Asim, it was the first time where I felt as though when Van Dijk's in any type of situation like that, I've never worried previously. I'm like, it's Van Dijk. He'll deal with it. He always deals with something like this. But honestly, when Osimhen got into that position, even though he was on his right foot and he was running towards the left-hand side, I just had this feeling that he was going to beat him. He was going to beat him and they're going to score. So that just tells you, if that's me, a Liverpool fan who's probably the most optimistic fan out there, is feeling like this. And I am very optimistic. If I'm feeling like that,
I believe you, mate.
The players, imagine the opposition. And Conroy's right. They'll see every side that's going to be playing against us now. They're loving this. They're going to be thinking high line, go at these players. They're ready to take us on. We're a side that used to strike feed into the hearts of the opposition. Teams are coming on to us now over the last games. High press, get at these players. Up our asses to an extent. They don't give us any space, and we look completely lackluster in every single department. But look, Conroy, in terms of the high line, there has to be changes, because you can't continue playing a high line with the way we're playing. It is suicidal to an extent, because you know how bad we are. The writing's already on the wall. We've conceded first in the last 8 of the last 9 games or whatever it is. There has to be changes, even if it means us being pragmatic, going with a midfield 3. Do it, because we've got the pace, like you mentioned up front, with Diaz, Salah, and whoever, let's say Jota, if he comes back. And this breaks, and this is the one thing I was happy about. I'm just glad that the break's sort of here. Well, I am digressing a little bit, so I'll let you take over.
Just add on that, guys, I wanted to ask you, see the Van Dijk thing? The one thing that's annoying me a bit about this is, see, for like news bites or clickbait, what people do is just miss 6 months of a year and just say, oh, this is the ACL coming back. I'm like, was he not just in the UEFA Champions League Team of the Year and the Premier League team? But we're not allowed to do that, because it's about selling clicks. It's not about having a actual intelligent conversation about something. But I want to actually ask you guys, taking that into consideration, he was brilliant last year. After about a month back, maybe 2 months, a month and a half, I'd say maybe just maybe before Christmas, he's really started to kick on. What a performance last year. I want to ask, where do you think this type of form from Van Dijk's coming from? Because I personally don't think it's related to injury. Because there's been too much. There's been a large sample size since then where he was brilliant. So, just want to get your opinion on that.
Conor, did you say you don't think it's because of injury?
I don't think it's because of that injury, to be honest. Just because of, like, he smashed it last year. This is not like he was decent. Like, he was head and shoulders the best defender in the league, or up there with, I think, Thiago Silva or Rudiger was really good. But he was Van Dijk, which I didn't think he'd get back to. So that's my personal opinion. But I just wanted to ask if you guys, if you thought it might be a late, or just why do you think the sudden drop in form?
Avi, Sheen, do you want to take that?
I'll let Avi go first.
I think I've mentioned it as well. Like, look, brain fatigue is a real thing in sports. Yeah, when you've been so focused on one thing and you've been doing it over the course of 9-10 months of a season for the last 3-4 years. He came back from an ACL and he played, I think Billy's put it up there, he's played 52 games last season. He is due a dip in form. Just the focus, the sharpness, not reading things, not anticipating as you expect of Virgil. Those things can happen. They've happened to great defenders. They've happened to the Rio Ferdinands, the John Terrys, the Yap Stams, modern day era defenders. Like, it happens to everyone. You go through a phase, and look, we are still 6 games in. This phase could be over by October, and all is not lost. But I do believe, I don't buy this World Cup stuff that he's concentrating on the World Cup with Holland and all this. He's not that kind of player. He is focused on every single game, and he said it in midweek as well. He said, "Look, I've got to. We as a team have got to put this right." And you just got to believe that they will put it right. But for me, it's just that anticipation, that decision making that's letting them down. But that's throughout the team. Let's not even talk about Trent. Joe Gomez, I was speaking to one of the members in our WhatsApp group. I said that he shouldn't have started on Wednesday. I thought 3 games in a row is too much for Joe, but he did start, and the lack of effort was embarrassing. Ready to eat humble pie. Me and Gene went off on one 2 weeks ago when I said he should have started. But look, it was, and Trent didn't help matters either on that right-hand side. It's hard to say that, Virgil's concentrating on the World Cup and this and that. It's loss of form as him, and he's allowed to have that. I think he's owed, he has those credits where he can lose a bit of form and focus when others should be sort of lifting him up. They can't, because they're in a similar, plight than Virgil is.
Yeah, I think to say, Van Dijk has an eye on the World Cup, I think is quite disrespectful, towards Van Dijk. I think he's a brilliant professional. But Conroy, I think is more. Yes, I agree with Avi in terms of every player can go through a rough patch. But I think it's even Van Dijk or any other player that you've seen, you can pick up Trent, you can pick up Van Dijk, you can pick up Gomez. A lot of them look exposed at the moment, and I think it's because of the system, because of the gaps. And when you're having to run in terms of face play in front of you with the open chest, and with the game in front of you being played out, it's a lot easier. You can control the ball, you can ping it up. But when you're having to turn around the other way and you're fully exposed and you have to make decisions, then how many times have we seen Van Dijk sort of let the other attacker make a move, and then he comes? How many times have we seen that clip? I mentioned it earlier a couple of weeks ago, that Son clip, even the Rashford at Old Trafford, But at the moment, like Sajia, touched on, is because of the gaps in midfield. And we saw that on the Van Dijk penalty when he conceded it. The midfield were in no man's land. And the irony is the midfielders were very, very close to each other. And I know we've been talking about for the last few weeks, the Liverpool midfield are, way too wide and not close to each other. On that instance, they were very close if you watch it back. But because of that, there was no connection between the press as to who's going to go and who's going to drop. They played two passes together and all of a sudden they're on the halfway line and Van Dijk is exposed because Osimhen is on his shoulder and he's quick. And we have not seen that. Many times when we've seen Van Dijk being exposed or trying to go at him, he's still in a lot more control. He knows where to sort of take the defender. But because of the spaces and the gaps are so big, Osimhen is quick enough to run into those spaces. And if he makes the first move, Van Dijk is running the other way all of a sudden. So I think it is a bit of that. But, then obviously a lack of confidence comes in play. When you're chasing games, you're going to be naturally more exposed, runners from the midfield. And it's a definite tactic from, teams. And look at the goal against Palace. It was a similar one where we got beat on the halfway line, too eager to win the ball. And Zaha is off. And we tried to play the offside trap, couldn't catch him. And I think it's a definite tactic from teams. And in this league, teams constantly work, sort of study you. And soon enough, if you don't keep on refreshing the team or keep on adjusting your team, soon enough, you'll be, worked out.
Look, I'm going to be a bit controversial, Conroy. Over Verge. Verge was amazing last season. But honestly, there was instances last season where I looked at it and I thought, you might not agree with me, and quite probably all of you guys probably won't. But there were instances last season where I saw and I thought, you know what? There was a slight dip in Verge in his performances. And yeah, he was amazing to an extent. And yeah, there was games where I thought, okay.
He was coming back from an ACL as well, yeah.
I know that, Avi. Let me finish. I know he was. But I'm talking, this is towards the back end of last season where he's been playing for 6 or 7 months. It's not the Verge. Look, if we're expecting Verge to be the same Verge from 2 or 3 years ago, he's not. We all know that. Deep down, I think we all know he's not that Verge. And which is understandable. He's had an ACL. It's been 3 years. He's turning 31. Fair play. I don't have an issue with that. I think there's a slight dip in form. Number one, I don't think he's as good as what he used to be. Number two, but one thing to the point that I want to make is one thing that I do want to say is because the dip in form is not just Verge. There's 6 or 7 players that we can say have all dipped at the same time. I can see that it's sort of being a quick fix because it's impossible for 7 or 8 players to all dip all at the same time. So for me, in terms of that, because I was thinking about it a few days ago, and I thought, how is it possible that 6 or 7 players can all of them dip at the same time? Is it a structural issue? I don't think it's at first I thought, is it a structural issue? And I did think that because yesterday I was thinking that, but last night I thought 6 or 7 players have dipped all at the same time. I'm sure 6 or 7 players are going to be able to lift their form sooner or later. And it might be because of the fatigue. There might be because of the games that they've played. But one thing I will say is I just don't think Verge is as the player that he was a couple of years ago. You might not agree with me.
No. Gene, I think we agree. I think I agree certainly to an extent. Look, the 2019-2020 Verge, the 2019 European Cup season Verge, he was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. The ACL, he is a big lad as well. It takes time to get used to. But look, even at 75%, Gene, last season, say 70%, he's still the best defender in the world, comfortably. Yeah, that's comfortably.
I thought his decision making, like he's like passing, for example, like that was on the money. Like that's so I can get the point it wasn't that, but I still thought it was like I don't think he started the season well, by the way, but I still think, as Avi says, even him at 85%, if his decision making, bear in mind, there's not I don't think there's one, maybe there's another one who can spray a 60-yard pass like Virgil. Right now, we won't even try it because his passing's been all over the place. So there is things that are just like obviously just not clicking at the moment. So like I get what you're saying, not to that level, but I still think even him at 85% is like ridiculous because he just like Martinez last year, as I said, wouldn't even try and run past them, which is.
Look, I get it. Honestly, I'm his biggest fan. It's just, and you guys probably might laugh at me. Even there was times when he's the way he runs, I sometimes feel as though he looks a bit leggy, and it might be because he's tired. It might be, and it might be a quick fix to this. But there's times, especially this season, I think Are we beginning to see a decline? Is this the season where we're going to see a decline in the verge that we're used to? Okay, I can accept the 80% sort of thing, yeah, and I get that he's still the best at 80%. But is this going to be the season where we're going to see the decline of Virgil van Dijk? I hope I'm wrong, and because I love the guy and I think he's the best defender in the world. But we'll have to wait and see.
Conroy, sorry, go for it, Avi.
No, I was just gonna say, look, obviously what's happened in the past, 24 hours, 48 hours with Her Majesty passing away, I think, that's awfully sad news, but I think, the hindsight, and I don't want to use this, but I think the break has come at the right time for Liverpool Football Club. I really do. It will give us time, 10 days to refresh, really think about how we're gonna reinvent ourselves. But honestly, if one team out there in England that was going to benefit, from this, and it's not a benefit, before everyone twists my words, it's not a benefit, but if any team that needed a breather right now and like a mini preseason for like even a week, it's Liverpool Football Club. Carry on. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Conroy, I want to ask you about Trent. There's plenty of a chat even today about Trent. He switches off, his walking is criminal. But look at how we're giving the benefit of doubt to Van Dijk, and I know Van Dijk has probably carried this team in terms of a defensive point of view more than Trent. But Trent, is important to us in many ways. But are we expecting a bit too much from him? And these sort of words like mental fatigue, have been branded about even on tonight's show. And don't you think we need to give him a bit of the benefit of doubt? And are Liverpool fans and Liverpool team as well expecting too much from Trent? You want him to stay wide at times and receive the ball from the centre backs. You want him to drive into that inverted space on the right hand side and become sometimes that dynamic midfielder where we outnumber teams in midfield and control games. Just like the goal he scored at Bournemouth, where he's a 1-2 with Bobby, and he cracked it in. And then when sort of Salah comes into a narrow position and Harvey Elliott is occupying that space, we want him to create in the overlap as well. So after all, I know he's a professional footballer, but he's a human being as well. So yes, he is so important, an integral part to our team. And how many times have we seen him play that ball before? Sort of that add speed to our attack, whether it's first time or it's just a second touch and it's the switch as well to Robbo. Are we expecting too much from Trent? And this is one of the reasons why we see some sort of moments of madness from him where he's just knackered.
Yeah, see, for me, it's like two things on this. So I've said this quite a few times recently. I do think the United game really kind of brought it home for me. I think Trent obviously is this word main playmaker. Right, well, you say compare him, he's the KDB of our team. Well, Manchester City have got 7 players who can turn it on if he doesn't turn up. Where I think we put too much on a 23-year lad, and our game a lot of the time now is played through him, which I think, one, makes you very predictable. It means if he's not on it, we're lacky ideas. And I think, to be honest, that's got to change. That cannot be your only outlet. Like, Trent can be the main guy, but if he's not on it, there has to be better patterns of play. That, to me, is not a top 2 team. If your only game plan is like just pass it to Trent and he'll do something, I understand we all work on other things, but firstly, that's got to improve in general. The United game showed that. It was literally like just give it to him and he'll do something. That's not great tactics. That's not great management. That, to me, just shows our other areas. They have to work on other things because at times it fall into the predictable FC thing. We are predictable. Don't tell me that you can't try different things. I'm not having that. Literally, championship teams can try different things, different bits of movement, but we rely, because this guy is like a wonder kid when it comes to his ability with the ball, out of this world. For me, I think we can have that, but we need to give him help at times. So that's on his playmaking point.
But Conor, just to interject there, do you think that's why Harvey Elliott was brought in that midfield 3 to create that bit of ingenuity and creativity and create chances for the front 3?
Yeah, possibly, but now it seems to be you're putting Elliott in at a time when we're getting absolutely overran, so he doesn't know if he's coming or going at times. So I get that. That's a fair point, Avi. But I'd say in the last start of this season, it's very apparent that we've got 11 players in that squad, 10 outfield players, and at times, I mean, for a team who scores so many set pieces, we're so rubbish at them. It's baffling. Like, no ingenuity. Bournemouth, when they got promoted, had more ingenuity from set pieces than we do. We just do an outswinger. It's the same. It's a whip cross. It's never a dink. It's never a laced ball. It's never a move to the front post. It's always the same. We rely on a centre-back scoring a header from about up 12 yards, right? Which, let's be honest, we've got the possibility to do that. But for me, I think we always seem to score like a few set pieces, and then it's like consistently do nothing from them. So there's no much coming from that. Then I know you're going to throw a stat at me about Bournemouth or something, but in general, we've been wasteful from set pieces. I think that's fair to say.
Sabr, please.
Yeah, Conroy, what, Conroy, just before you go, I think I agree with Conroy. And I think obviously with Thiago missing Conroy, he was our, let's say, the other player that's some sort of our orchestra who, who's good enough to play some sort of balls. So when he's not playing, the onus is completely on Trent to make play. So he's the only one, and there's a lot more pressure on him to deliver. So when he's having let's say a half, in the first 10 minutes having a bad game, there's too much pressure on a 23-year-old kid to make play for us every single opportunity.
Yeah. And because he's got it in his locker as well, I think even on him, the Hollywood pass, even he does that far too often as well. But do you not think that's mad that we've got a team who's been in the Champions League final and our main outlet consistently when we're struggling is just a 23-year-old who's unbelievable. But I don't know many teams in the world who've only got one outlet. When like that was baffling. Am I the only one? Like, if you watch other teams, like there's patterns they play to cut teams open. That's why you don't need to play a 60-yard diag to be a good attacking player or bring something to the team. You just have to have good cohesion and movement, and that apparent right now is not there. Because even our best player in the last games, Mr. Luis Diaz, who Blue Chip loves there, he's just been doing individual runs. It's not link up. It's literally just cutting in. And by the way, just shoot. If you're going to shoot, stop faking to shoot 500 times. Honestly, just shoot. Honestly, they see the other night, he should have just shot every time because literally no one else was creating anything. So he just should have shot. Like, that was your invitation to just smack it. But on just back to the Trent point. So I think like that's unfair, and that's something that maybe because we're poor form, I get it, but that's not normal. I'm not having that's normal. You got 10 players in that park. That shouldn't just be down to him. He's exceptional talent, but even exceptional talents have help. So Wayne Rooney, outstanding player, but had other great players around him to help when he was not at it as well. When I'm talking about another young player who was outstanding. On the point of the defensive part, this is where I'm going to not contradict, but I'm going to have to go to the other side of this. You cannot, I was going to swear again, be walking. You cannot be walking. You cannot be walking, full stop. I don't care if you're a striker. I don't care. You cannot be walking. And this is a few times now. So I don't know. I don't know if it's like he believes his own height. I don't know if he's exhausted. But that's not an excuse either way, because it's either got to come from the medical team. It's got to come from somewhere that if he's having to walk, then he's not fit enough to start. It's pretty simple. And the one thing my worry is, he was really poor the other night. Like, and let's not sugar it. I think Trent's amazing, but he was poor. He was not on it. And Joe Gomez got hooked, right? Did Trent deserve to get substituted? Absolutely. Was he ever going to get substituted? No chance, because we lack so much creativity right now that the player who's been actually terrible in the game will stay on the park. Now, to me, does that mean, and some people were saying this, that it feels like he can get taken off and then it becomes I think arrogant is too far. I'm not saying that, but is there a complacency where it's like, I don't have to sprint back. I'm sorry, guys, that is not on. United was the same. This is not a one-off. You cannot sprint back. Like, it's not like you can't jog. Like, I don't know. I used to think he's maybe seen Virgil too often because Virgil's got that type of swagger, but it's not really an arrogance with Virgil. It used to be more like a decision-making, like you put it on the attacker. Can't do that if you're a full-back. Sorry, because you need to stop across. So I'm not down the boat. You're a right-back. You need to get. I don't mind. See if he makes a mistake, see if he'll get cut open causing the break. I can live with that. I cannot accept you're not chasing or running. That is just not on. Like, there's no argument. There is no excuse in the world. But don't worry, he'll end up starting the next match. And maybe that's a problem as well. Maybe there's no repercussion.
Both fullbacks have been taken off quite regularly this year. Whether it was, bad form or they're sort of reaching the.
But we were chasing. I know, I get that, and you're right with the Newcastle game, and I get that. But like, I think the reason Milner had a really terrible performance against, who did he come on against? Everton. I think that's completely threw that out the window now. So it'll be a case of there's Ramsey's not in. There's no deputy. So does it feel that? No, I'm not calling him arrogant, but I can't compute how he can get away with running. Like if you were playing with a Sunday League team or a semi-pro team and you were running, that's not acceptable. So I don't see how we can't change the narrative.
But
I know
Avi,
he's our kid. I know he's amazing, but you can't change the narrative.
no doubt. But Avi, don't you think if we all agree that he's not just a fullback? You know, he has other roles in this team, and like Conroy said, you know, if Thiago's out, why should we sort of rely on one player to make play? Well, if he's going to be expected to come into midfield, shouldn't he get a bit more protection? And making Harvey Elliott play in that sort of 5 yards, 10 yards, you know, half space is exposing us off the ball, because all of a sudden when we lose it, you know, Trent's in midfield, you know, and how many teams, even Everton, when you know were targeting him, even when Trent went off. So shouldn't we sort of adjust? And I know that word again where we've been talking about how Liverpool should reinvent themselves. Should they look at this sort of formation change and let Trent come into midfield, Avi, when there's an extra sort of, you know, midfielder playing as part of the base? So when he does come into midfield, he's got more protection.
100%. He should push up forward and maybe be an extra man in that midfield. We've seen it with City this season with Cancelo, even more than last season. He's pushing up right in that middle line of the midfield, like alongside him, even been further than the midfield at times, where Rodri just took a step back in a 3 alongside like a Diaz or Stones or whoever they have at the back. He does need protection. Unfortunately, that right side does need working on, but then what's the justification with Salah so wide? You know, why is Salah so wide from previous seasons? You know, he's always said that he's not a forward. He's a winger in previous statements that Salah's made. Well, this time he is an actual winger now. You know, and his form is suffering. The gap between him, Nunes, and Diaz is way too wide. Even with Bobby, way too wide. Those two should be compact. United are doing it right now with Anthony, Rashford, Sancho, the goal that we scored against Arsenal. They were very conjoined with the three of them. So with Trent, he does need protection on that right-hand side. But again, look, he's 23 years old. He's played like 237 games. He's averaging, again, 50 games a season since the age of 18. Is that exhaustion? Does he need timeout? You know, do we need a formation change? This is all what we're going to, you know, hopefully find out in the coming week or so. I mean, we got Ajax in the Champions League that someone pointed out, so we haven't got that much of a break. But then we've got Chelsea away, Graham Potter's new look Chelsea. Now, I don't, you know, I know, we know that Graham Potter's not going to have that sort of, he's not going to put that blueprint straight away on them, but that becomes a very tricky game now. You know, I would have fancied that Chelsea had got rid of Tuchel after our game, but I can't explain the trend. Robbo's the same, you know, playing excessive football. And it seems as if Klopp hasn't got that trust in Tsimikas yet to play him. Although he did play against Everton, and I thought he done well. I thought he done well apart from the delivery. With the right-hand side, Ramsey's injured. Gomez can shift to the right, and Matip. That's what I would prefer. I would honestly prefer right now put Gomez on the right, Matip and Verge, and then Robbo Tsimikas at the back at the moment. Because Trent's effort or lack of effort in the last few since the start of the season, it's damning. The first goal against Mitrovic, I know Mitrovic is a big lad, but he could have, you know, stood up to him better. His positional, Newcastle game, we couldn't do anything there. The United game, lackluster. Strolling, he's playing against the likes of Sancho, Rashford, his England teammates. He should be getting stuck in there, you know, and saying, yeah, boys, look, we're here, we're still Liverpool, you know. He is a scouse. You know, he knows what it means to Liverpool fans and the little club, you know, to represent that shirt. But he's equally as culpable as the rest of them. You know, the Napoli game, him and Gomez on that right-hand side, I don't want to mention anything because it will be watershed moment and parental, you know, is going to be advised, you know, for kids not to tune in. But yeah, that right-hand side needs to be worked on. And the quicker that Calvin Ramsey gets back, and I know people are saying, oh, he's 19, I'll be like, come on. But this kid could be the real thing. I mentioned last week that I spoke to an ex-Aberdeen player. They believe that this kid will go all the way, and he's not here just to warm up that bench.
Yeah. Well, I'm a bit skeptical about that. But look, I've not seen much of Calvin Ramsey, and I know he's only 19, but if we're relying on a player that we've never seen before, then it just goes to show what sort of state our team is in at the moment. But you've all mentioned Elliott, you've all mentioned Salah, and big up Mr. Muft is in the building.
The new
main
king,
man.
the new king of England.
Long live the king! Long live the king! But look, he says Elliott is the reason why Salah is wide. Gene, I'm going to come to you on this, and I'm going to get everyone's take on this. If you look at Salah's, heat maps, it's not much different. And he says, Elliott is the reason why Salah is wide. But if you see Elliott's, heat maps, he's more or less playing as a winger. He's a right-sided winger at the moment. Obviously, he comes into that space, but why is that right-sided problem for Liverpool? And tell me what's the reason? There's a notion where Liverpool fans, and I sort of kind of spoke to you guys on WhatsApp today about this. I believe, look, Harvey Elliott has been decent for Liverpool this season, but with all due respect, he's been provided the space to express himself, whether it's on the ball or off the ball, because at the moment he's been playing between lines, especially when he comes into that space. But what he needs to justify that role is with goals and assists. And it's one of the reasons why we're exposed in the counter-attack is because of Harvey Elliott. And I don't mind that. If Liverpool want to sort of evolve into more of a possession-based team, playing, I don't want to say the Manchester City way, but having Fabinho as, the lone destroyer and having sort of more 2 8s rather than 2 6s playing with him, or even 2 10s, because we saw it at Everton, didn't we, with Carvalho and Elliott. Whatever you thought about that midfield, it was lightweight, and they're more 10s rather than 8s for me. But what do you think is a problem for Salah? Elliott playing? Do you think he's coming and making those similar runs? Do you think he's occupying similar spaces? Because everyone, in the last season, I know we saw it was a small sample size before he got injured, and we've seen it again this season. Everyone's saying, yes, he's one of the star performers. But is he sacrificing our best player at the moment?
Asim, I asked you this question a couple of weeks ago on here, and I said, do you think he's the way him playing in that position is detrimenting Salah? And everybody would feel like, okay, probably not, because he was playing well. He was probably our best player. Let's see, him and Diaz were probably our best players. Because look, I know he plays in the half space on the right hand side, but what you do, the opposition, they genuinely know that all our creativity is from one area of the field. And when Darwin hasn't started and Bobby, all that midfield is congested. And I felt as though that when Harvey starts in that position, that there's too many players in that area, and it gets really, really congested, and Salah's going to struggle. Yes, I can accept there's times where Salah does come into that area on the edge of the box. It does sort of free up some sort of space for him, and he has. There's a couple of times where he has got in there, but generally speaking, I've felt as though that area, it's become congested, and we're struggling to make some sort of play. Especially, I forget Bournemouth. I'm not bringing in Bournemouth. I'm talking about the other games. And we struggled. Salah's generally struggled. You look at the United game, Salah really struggled. Martinez and Malacia, they were out so quick to him. They gave him no room. No team is giving us any space now. The respect level is not there. Where when Salah used to pick up the ball before, they were sat a couple of yards, ahead of him. No, they're up his arse right now. So when he's gonna, yes, they're doubling up on him, but that's expected. They were doubling up on him last season when he was one of the best players in the world at the early last season. This isn't anything new to Salah, but with Harvey playing in that role, I expect, look, and I'm his biggest fan, and I think he's a wonderful footballer. Do I expect a lot more goals and assists from him? Of course I do. But it's a magnitude of things, because the whole team isn't playing well.
Yeah, it's a bit unfair, isn't it, now? Because if you're putting him in that situation, expecting him to rise to the top is quite difficult.
We're relying on an 18-year-old to be our main man at times. Come on, that is. And
we do that too often. We do put, like, when Jota's out, Jota's going to be the saviour, Thiago's going to be the saviour. It's like, I do think we do that far too often. Like, we got to stop relying on one person to be the main 100%. Person. That becomes a habit on Twitter. I think it's like people forget before Jota came back, everyone wanted him out of the team because he's touched terrible. But as soon as Sadio Mane gets injured, and Mane finishes the season great, but at the start of the season, he wasn't very good, and he'll come back. It's like we do have this kind of saviour narrative sometimes, and I don't believe in it a lot of the time. I think you need to collectively improve. Sorry to interrupt, mate.
No. Look, I totally agree. Look, because so many of our players have been off form, I want to see. Look, now we've got Thiago back, right? I do sort of believe we will completely change the way we play. Because he's that good of a footballer, we will see.
I do agree with that. But that's a problem as well, though. That again, we're having to hang our hat on that. How the hell can you have all this contingency planning and the one player who's against the model is the one thing you're holding your hat on? That is baffling. Like that should not be the case.
That's all
This is what we're faced with right now, and this is the simple truth. We're so reliant on Thiago, and it's weird because he's a midfielder that we wouldn't have had a few years ago. Now he's the complete. We're totally reliant on this one player, and it does come down to look in the transfer market, and that's a simple truth. In terms of refresh. And I genuinely believe this. Other teams, the Man Cities of this world, will go and refresh every year. They're bringing two, let's not say world-class players, but close to world-class players, very good footballers, and the refresh is always there. We haven't done that for 4 years. So let's face the music, Kanate, Jota, Darwin's been out, Thiago's been out. These are the 4 or 5 players, Jota, these are the 4 or 5 players that we've recently bought. So all of them 4 or 5 players that have not played. So who are we left with? We're left with a pool of players that have been playing the same sort of football for the last 5 years. It's easy. The opposition know the way we play. The players that we supposedly come in recently, that were supposed to take over some sort of mantle from these sort of players, they're not there because they're injured, they're suspended, or whatever the reason. And the only person that's probably come in is probably Diaz and an 18-year-old Harvey Elliott. And that's unfair to rely on an 18-year-old to be the main sort of man. Yes, I do. Do I expect more goals because he's in that position? Do I expect more assists? Do I expect more play from him? Of course I do. Why? Because you're in the position where that's what he should be doing. But we can't be relying on an 18-year-old.
Yeah, I think it's fair to judge him. See when everyone, I hate when people say everyone's back. See we're in a better run of form. I think you can judge him then. I've stopped saying that everyone's back because every week there's an injury. I don't know if it's been a Liverpool fan. I'd like to ask other fans if they talk about injuries as much as us. Maybe that should be a video in itself. Why do Liverpool get so much injuries every season? But that's too big a topic. And sometimes I think that's just me in my own head because I'm talking about this all the time. Yeah. But it does seem to be like it's like a weak play on Liverpool.
That's your research, Conroy, for next time now.
Yeah, maybe. Like that is one thing I do question. Like the other teams have this much injuries consistently.
But I think it's bad luck as well, Conroy. And I think you guys are right. Sometimes we do like to overanalyze things, and that's what we're probably here for. But it's in the similar way where Liverpool sort of high line that we were talking about, it's a work of art at times, and when it's working in tandem, it's absolutely joy to watch. But when you need to make small adjustments, and Liverpool don't like doing that, and even when it comes to Harvey Elliott now, do we sort of go back to the flat 3, in midfield? But the problem is as much as we try to overanalyze things, is we have to understand most of the injuries all of the injuries that are taking place in Liverpool, it is always happens to be in one area. So it doesn't matter how much sort of tweaks that we see on a weekly basis. The crux of the matter is that we've just got too many players out, and we're looking for these dynamic players to be sort of outrunning teams. But at the moment, between Thiago and whoever is playing at the moment, because of the injuries, there's just a massive gulf in class, and that's just a massive reason why Liverpool have found so many problems.
No, absolutely. And just very good point. I just wanted to add as well, I think the thing about Salah's heat map as well, because it's very similar, and that's a very good point. But also as well, how many times did we used to turn teams over in last season with a quick ball from a centre-back or from Trent to catch Salah at that wide position, but on the break, so it's in transition, and he'd be at that wide area coming in. So it's a kind of different, from memory, it's not as much as him having the ball with 3 defenders around him, it's him breaking on the team, coming from that position, like the whip ball by Trent or the diag by Virg. That the passing ability is completely gone at the moment. So I think that also adds to why we're getting so frustrated with Salah, because there is games where he's definitely had that before being blocked off, but there's been instances where he's got in, but the supply from that side is just not on there now. But I would say he's been poor as well at times. not every game, but he's still been poor as well. I just think that's another factor that you don't see us playing it very often now, because I think they've just realised that Big Virgin Trent, can't find a man now, and hopefully Big Joe will come back and say, get out of the way, this is how you go for an adventure and pass the ball.
But before I go to Avi, I think it's only fair for us to go to him when we're talking about Harvey Elliott. He's been wanting this sort of subject all day on the WhatsApp. And I'll just
here we go.
Haven't even spoken to us in a couple of days. Don't know what WhatsApp group he's in.
Avi's going to tell us that we need to sell him in January.
That's a burner account. Someone's got the cloned account on Avi.
Conroy, Avi's going to tell us we need to sell him in January.
No. Look, Harvey Elliott, look, it's a difficult one, right? Look, I understand that right now we have injuries in the middle of the park, and it's not really helping his cause. But I also know that a large base of Liverpool fans that have hyped up Harvey Elliott unnecessarily. He shouldn't be starting games yet. He should be coming on 15, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, easing him. We should be easing him in. But obviously, look, that is no blame on the poor fella. That is a lot on like sort of Klopp and the coaches and our lack of midfield options. But I just feel that he doesn't fit in a midfield three. And I know Klopp's trying to change the way we play and try to be maybe a little bit more progressive and a little bit more advanced. But for me, especially the team that we're accustomed to with Jurgen Klopp, he on the turnovers, defensive exchanges, he just lacks speed. He doesn't get back. I mean, the Everton game was a perfect example where the poor guy's running back and he hasn't got the legs. He hasn't. Against Napoli, he looked very short. And these are big games, by the way. United, I gave him credit for because he hung it out there. He stuck it out till the 93rd, till full time. And he battled. Everton was a big game. The game against Napoli was a big game, and he just falls short yet. I want the player to succeed. I really do, but he's not helping. It's not helping our cause with him starting, and he just can't influence the game. I look at other 19-year-olds, guys, and if we're going to be harsh critics, you look at other 19-year-olds around the world, the Pedris, the Gavis, the Phil Fodens, right? And look, this is the pedestal, unfortunately, that we've tried to put him on because a lot of Liverpool fans believe this guy is the next best thing since sliced bread. You have to be a special footballer to actually hit it off at that age. You've got to be...
Avi, just to interject, don't you think it's unfair to compare him to someone like Foden?
No, because that's the pedestal that Liverpool fans have put him on.
It's development, isn't it? It's about development.
But with Foden, you knew straight away of what special footballer he is. I can't see it yet with Harvey Elliott. Few silky touches, having a good first touch. Passing it here and there, the 1-2s, I get all that, but you need to do it over the course of 90 minutes. He doesn't influence the game enough for me. And to be honest, he has to kick on. No, I'm not being harsh, Gina.
I'm not saying that you're being harsh. All I'm saying is Foden had 18 months of bedding in time, where we've just put Harvey Elliott into a side when all our players are out and all our players are off form. And I'm expecting an 18-year-old...
special talents shine through whatever the occasion.
Slightly harsh on Harvey Elliott.
And look, I totally respect, and I've said I think I have been harsh, but special talents shine through whatever the occasion.
But Foden is a special talent in the Avi. I don't think anyone thinks Harvey Elliott is that. He's going to be a good player, potentially a brilliant player. But Foden's different level. Like Foden's IQ is off the scale. I don't think there's a young player I've seen. I don't care. Like it's a good point. No, but Foden's exceptional. Foden is literally like next level. The guy is tiny and people can't get near him because his brain is ahead of everyone else.
But there is a vast amount of Liverpool fans since the start of the season, after watching a few clips of preseason, saying this boy's ready. He is not ready.
I agree with that. But I just think Foden's not the scale. Foden's different. You can't compare him to Foden. Foden's like...
But Conrad,
Pedri's a bad example. Pedri's starting for Spain in the World Cup.
Why can we not compare him? Why?
Because I think we have realism. We know what his ceiling is and what he can get to. Pedri started for a Euro semi-final, right? You can't get compared to that. You can't lace their boots because you're not in that level. Like these are exceptional talents. These are like Harvey Elliott isn't Wayne Rooney at 16. Like we need to get that in. I think sometimes we're so Liverpool scenic with it, right? But he could be a starter for Liverpool. not every starter for Liverpool is Rooney, is Foden, but they can be. I'd still see even Elliott could be brilliant, but I just think those two examples, maybe Gavi's a fair example. Gavi probably is, but Pedri got 100% pass completion in the semi-final for Spain. That's like that's the generational talent. I think it's just, I get what you're saying, mate, and I do think there's got to be a bit of realism there, but I just think it's where people set their ceilings. And I do think what happened is we get so gassed so quickly. Like, we're even talking about like Ben Doak now, that he's going to come in and boss. And it's like Bajcetic has a few good games. They're coming in. Tyler Morton's going to be the next Busquets. We need to calm it down, because
you can blame your partner on Redfellas for the Busquets. Yeah, that Grizz, whatever his name, whatever he calls himself these days, he's the one who said Tyler Morton is the Busquets.
But my point is, like, academy is equivalently a business model to make money, right? You get a few exceptions, but that's basically it. Curtis Jones,
and look, all I'm saying is right now, and I hope I'm wrong. I don't see Harvey Elliott ever being a first team player for Liverpool Football Club.
But do you think that's a positional thing, Avi? Though, do you think in other teams they would find a better position for him?
I put it on Twitter this, and I put a similar tweet 3 weeks ago, and people were like, "Oh no, you're chatting shit. Harvey Elliott's going to be a mainstay. Klopp's already got this plan for him." I put the same tweet on after the Wednesday Napoli game. And ironically now, there's a few people who were commenting on previously giving me shit for it, saying, "You know what, spot on now, spot on." You know, it's like a little game that you play on Twitter. Like, are those same people that were berating me, are they going to come back? But listen, I just don't. People are saying front three. I don't think he's got quick enough. I don't think he's quick enough to play off the right or off the left. Maybe a formation change. Ask him. As a 10, maybe as a 10.
I don't think, Avi, I don't think that works, because it's easy to say, yeah, let's, like, Irfan says with Elliott. I think the only way going forward is play 4-2-3-1. Elliott in the hole, the right-sided 8 position for him isn't working and hampering Salah's performances. But I don't think it's just as simple as that, changing the 4-2-3-1, because you might get away with it with, sort of the top, the below 10, in the table. Mid-table team, sorry. But when you come up against good teams, what they'll simply do is, if he's in the 10, they'll outnumber you in midfield and they'll force you. They'll force you.
Such a good point.
Exactly, and force Elliott to go into midfield. And then we've got the same problem in midfield that he had on the right side of midfield, where he doesn't got the ball awareness of the ball. And all of a sudden,
unless the risk is worth the reward. See if he's exceptional and you're destroying teams, it's worth it. But I mean, would you not say Maddison's like, people are underrating how good James Maddison's been, like, goals and assists since the end of last season. And they don't even play a 10 really, because it's hard to play a 10 at the moment, because, like, as you say, caught in transition's a big thing now. I think that Brighton game I alluded to earlier, it was like Bissouma, Mbeumo and Trossard dropped in. They just basically overloaded us in that game, because I think we played, I can't remember, it might have been Henderson, and we just weren't at it. And that just shows you that was our free in midfield and we couldn't handle it. So I get it. I think a 4-2-3 sounds great in attack. Like, I think it could work well, but it's just like, it's a transition. And also, additionally, Klopp's our actual example of playing a 4-3-3 never seems to work out, because we say it's going to be great, and in the game we seem to not play. It doesn't seem to function well. But I don't know, Avi. I still think he could play in the right. I think he's intelligent enough. I know it's Blackburn, right? But I still thought he played there at times. Or I know that's maybe not a good example, but
right? He was playing Tony Mowbray at Blackburn.
Sorry. So I take that. No, I'm not saying.
Let's behave.
No, I'm saying at the age he was to do that. I think what I meant to say is I think he's got something about him, right? And he's still a young guy. But my point is, I think he can play the right. The reason being is, I think if you're intelligent, you can play out in the wing. You don't have to be rapid. You just have to be smart. Look at players like Ben Ayoun, zero pace, but they're smart to link stuff up. But I get what you're saying. It might become a more prevalent problem, but he's still so young. I can't see it becoming an issue in the near future. I still think he'll get a chance, to be honest. Yeah. And I take back the Blackburn point. I was just meant to say he had something about him. Not that that's a comment to start.
You meant what you said.
But I'll get the tweets. I'll get the tweets after that.
You meant what you said.
I mean, I agree with that. I agree with you to some extent. Look, you're just making an assumption on a player, whether it's early or that's your opinion, isn't it? And I have to respect that.
He's just
And
making that opinion because he thinks Curtis Jones is going to make it. Go on, let him speak about Curtis Jones. Saying, come on, go on, I know you're dying.
But I
I
think
know
it's
you want to
unfair.
speak Jones.
But I think
Gene,
it's unfair.
I've
on Vlad,
categorically never
because-
said that Curtis Jones will be a
I-
Liverpool player.
I think it's unfair
You
on
sure?
You know what? I think systematically Curtis Jones is a better fit than
You
Harvey
mentioned
Elliott in
it
a
today.
midfield.
didn't you?
There you go.
Well, look,
I really believe
he's struggled at times to make that transition from left winger into this sort of left midfield.
I need
role
that
where-
2.5 years at it.
And look, this is the reason why I'm saying Elliott at the
Calm
moment
down.
needs more time. Look at Everton away, Avi. We expected him to become Bernardo Silva all of a sudden. When we made a few changes, all of a sudden he was expected to play in a double pivot. And that's what I'm saying. He's not at that stage of his development at the moment because he
And
just
it's weird. It's weird that I see something in Curtis Jones and I don't see in Harvey Elliott. It's weird how we all look at football in a different perspective. And I still believe that Harvey Elliott will be a Liverpool player, and I still believe that he will have a long
Elliott or Curtis
long.
Jones?
No, sorry. Curtis Jones will have a longer career than Harvey Elliott. That's just me. It's different. It's amazing how we see the game differently, and it's great. It's great.
But
We
I
should
think
all understand.
Elliott will take the chance, Avi. I think Elliott will try that ball that he could lose it, whereas Curtis Jones overthinks far too often. Like he seems to question his ability to play the ball when he should, and I think that's
Conroy,
maybe his biggest problem. Because
That's
I think
the
he's got the talent. I think he has got potential to be a squad player. But I think that's his biggest problem.
That's a point, but I also believe that Jurgen Klopp in the last 18 months has tried to mold Curtis Jones into a midfield, into a position that he's not going to enjoy. He is off the cuff. Let him enjoy his football. Let him just
But
run,
he's not good enough.
roam.
He's not good
and
enough to play on the wing.
Ask him how do we know if he's never been tried? He
He's not
should
good
be in a
enough.
midfield three. If he gets the freedom that Harvey Elliott kind of has in midfield, where he can go and run and dribble with the ball, take a few pop shots, right, from the edge of the box, 30 yarders, he will flourish. At the moment, it's as if Klopp's tried to mold him into this industrious midfielder. He's not that.
But
He's
Avi,
not.
it's not a coincidence where Curtis Jones' best games have come where he's played that sort of left inverted number 10. I think one game was
Southampton away.
Southampton away, Villa away, where he played just outside the box on the left-hand side, because that's his strength, to get half a yard and whip it, in the top bag. I know he hasn't got a lot, but he tries that a lot because he's
Sheffield United away 2 seasons ago
Yeah,
as well. He
scored
was
a goal as well.
did
Yeah, scored a
as
goal.
well with that position.
But
Yeah.
to play that sort of Diaz and Mane role, Avi, I just don't think he possesses the pace.
I would love to see a Thiago Fabinho pivot with Curtis Jones ahead of them, and you'd have legs as well. You'd have legs to get back as well. He'd have much better durability than Harvey Elliott.
Look,
But
this
with-
is why this is
Carry
why
on,
look,
carry
a
on.
few weeks ago, this is why I was really upset when he got injured, because I genuinely believe this was his season where it's make or break. And I mentioned that in that pod that we had, that this was his make or break season, and I was peed off that he got injured because I wanted him to get game time, because he would have got game time at that time. Do I think now? I think Harvey Elliott now slightly is ahead of him. I think even in terms, I think Klopp likes Harvey more than he does Jones. But I still want to see Jones come in. I want to see Jones, and I think Jones, Diaz, the few times that they have played together on that side with Robbo, they played well together. So maybe if he comes back and he gets his chance, if he takes it, we'll have to wait and see. But it is make or break for him this season, and that's just the way it is, because he's been there 2.5 years. What, maybe 2.5, 3 years? If he doesn't make it this year, when's he going to make it?
But what is making for Gene, for you? What is making it though? What's making it for you?
I'm not expecting. Look, I'll be honest with you. I don't expect him to be a starter in the first 11 for Liverpool. Personally, I and now that we've bought Arthur as well, I don't know. I think maybe he's going to be the replacement for sort of Thiago, and Harvey's going to get the nod. So for me, a squad player at best. For
Yeah, but that's what I see him being, though. That, to me, that's still an achievement, to be honest.
Yeah, of
like
course
that's
it is.
still an achievement to be a
But
squad
Conroy,
player.
he still has to take that chance of actually becoming the
No,
squad player.
if usually left, I don't know if you guys feel the same. I always feel like he can do more after every game. Like I feel like he's got the potential to do more, and he just never fully lets himself go.
Sells
Maybe
himself short a little bit, Conroy. No, I agree.
Maybe that is because it's been drilled into him to not express yourself. I don't
We
know,
know
but that's
how. The thing is, we know how good he is. I think every single Liverpool fan actually knows He's a good footballer. He's got the technical skills. He's very good on the ball, comfortable, can beat a man, can go both ways. He's got all of that. Yes, we all know is everybody will come with the same thing, decision making. And it's something that we've been saying the same thing, decision making, for the past year now. So when he comes back now, he has to show us that aspect of his game has improved. Yes, if it improves, he might have a career, a squad, a squad member of our team. If he doesn't, he'll be shipped off.
No, I agree.
If Gene says it, then we all agree. Gene says it, we agree.
No, I agree. I think
no one wants to go on the wrong side of Gene. Let me tell you that.
But it's the truth, though, man. If he's not going to sort his decision making out, there's only one thing left.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that game that always, when you talk about Curtis Jones, sticks out is that Man City at home at Anfield last year, where Milner and Jones played. And I think I've got no doubts when it comes to
registered an assist in that game, Asim. Sabr Karo, Sabr.
That was not an assist. That was Salah's goal. That's not even an assist.
Probably came off his ass or something. But look, I have no qualms about Curtis Jones and his ability on the ball. What I do need to see him sort of improve, if he's going to make it into the squad/team, is off the ball awareness and up there. Sometimes having that belief in your own ability. You know what? I can do this. And whatever Klopp is trying to make me into a progressive midfielder or a new version of Wijnaldum on the right-hand side, left-hand side, then so be it. But I think first and foremost, he bloody needs to stay fit, because if he doesn't do that, then we got no chance of him even sort of getting near the squad. But I think that is everything that we needed to or wanted to cover. Normally like to stay up until around an hour, but I think it's been an interesting show today. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Conroy, thank you very much. And all of you guys are in here, or even if you come in later, please do give Conroy a follow on Twitter. And I'm sure this will be just the first of many times that we see you on our screen.
Definitely. Pleasure, guys.
Pleasure. If we let Avi go, I'm sure he'll come up with something else from 1921 and say, look, I told you so. So I'm not going to let him speak now.
They're in his drafts. They're definitely in his drafts, in his Twitter drafts, 100%.
Well, yeah, thank you very much, guys. If you come later on, please drop us a like, drop us a follow, wherever you see us on our socials, and smash a comment as well. Yeah, I don't know what we're going to be doing over the next 10 days. I think the next game that we're going to be playing is home to Brighton, I think it is.
League game, yeah.
League game, yeah. We've got Ajax on Tuesday. So stay tuned for all the content coming your way. The next one's going to be on the road as we head down to Anfield and make sure we kickstart our European campaign at home to Ajax. But in the meantime, we shall see you soon, and have a good night. Take care.